swapped. He's going to do next week. So we're going to be in Proverbs, the 13th chapter. And I'll read it all the way through, and then we'll try to pick out a few. I got two that I really want to talk about, but I bet somebody will pick them out. 13. Starting verse 1, 13. A wise son heeds his father's instruction, but a scoffer does not listen to rebuke. A man shall eat well by the fruit of his mouth, but the soul of the unfaithful feeds on violence. He who guards his mouth preserves his life, but he who opens wide his lips shall have destruction. The soul of a lazy man desires and has nothing, but the soul of the diligent shall be made rich. A righteous man hates lying, but a wicked man is loathsome and comes to shame. Righteousness guards him whose way is blameless, but wickedness overthrows the sinner. There is one who makes himself rich, yet has nothing, and one who makes himself poor, yet has great riches. The ransom of a man's life is his riches, but the poor does not hear rebuke. The light of the righteous rejoices, but the lamp of the wicked will be put out. By pride comes nothing but strife, but with the well-advised is wisdom. Wealth gained by dishonesty will be diminished, but he who gathers by labor will increase. Hope deferred makes the heart sick, but when the desire comes, it is the tree of life. He who despises the word will be destroyed, but he who fears the commandment will be rewarded. The law of the wise is a fountain of life, to turn one away from the snares of death. Good understanding gains favor, but the way of the unfaithful is hard. Every prudent man acts with knowledge, but a fool lays open his folly. A wicked messenger falls into trouble, but a faithful ambassador brings health. Poverty and shame will come to him who disdains correction, but who regards a rebuke will be honored. A desire accomplished is sweet to the soul, but it is an abomination to fools who depart from evil. He who walks with wise men will be wise, but the companion of fools will be destroyed. Evil pursues sinners, but to the righteous good shall be repaid. A good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children, but the wealth of the sinner is stored up for the righteous. Much food is in the fallow ground of the poor, and for lack of justice there is waste. He who spares his rod hates his son, but he who loves him disciplines him promptly. The righteous eats to the satisfaction of his soul, but the stomach of the wicked shall be in want. Like I say, he's always doing these little one verse, two verses together, but there's 3 or 4 in there that's really big deal. He goes over and over, just keeps harping on the same things. So y'all pick out something that you want to ask about, and then we'll see if we can get through it.
It seems like verse 8 and say, for example, verse 25, it sounds like those things, or verse 21, sounds like they contradict each other.
Contradicts each other? A ransom for a man's life is his riches, but the poor does not hear rebuke.
So he's saying in some ways, it's a whole lot better to be poor, be broke, because you don't have to worry about anybody trying to kidnap you and hold your ransom and that kind of stuff and take advantage of you, because if you don't have anything, but then down below where he talks about a poor man's field would yield a lot, except through injustice, verse 23.
I don't know. There's two ways of looking at that. The ransom of a man's life is as well. Could mean that a man who has wealth can afford to defend himself or avoid punishment. And then the poor man gives no rebuke. It's not that he's not being rebuked, he just doesn't care. Because his laziness. But I don't know which
I got, but to me, the ransom of man's life is his riches. If you count your riches, then it's going to be a wreck. If you put your value in what you have, that's the way I took it. It doesn't really mean, rich. There's a bunch of rich men in the Bible that come off real good, but it never was about the riches. A man that does count his money as his success, then he's going to be in a wreck. It's not going to work. But I wrote down, the world judges a man by his riches on earth. Solomon clearly says that it is wrong. We must give God the credit for what we have, not ourselves. If we take credit, it's going to be what it says. It'll be his ransom. It won't get, that's the way I take it. But the poor does not hear rebuke. The poor of what? Is it talking poor riches or poor? That I didn't know.
See, in the English Standard Version, what it says is, but a poor man hears no threat, which is why I took it to mean
Okay.
like a kidnapping ransom, but a poor man doesn't have to worry about being kidnapped because he's got nothing that they would want or be able to get from him. So,
you might be right.
That word changes it a little. But you think it went with 23?
Well, I'm saying, when you look at 23, it seems to be the opposite kind of thought, which is the ground of the poor would be rich and fertile and do real well, except because of injustice. Either somebody's taken the crops that it grows, or he doesn't have time to work it to grow the crops.
And some of them I don't understand. There's a bunch of them I find a verse or two, but I don't quite comprehend. I mean, usually it covers it up in another verse here somewhere. But 25, the righteous eats to the satisfaction of his soul, but the stomach of the wicked shall be in want. So if they all three go together, to me, 25 means, let me get over here too. I got 25. I got a bunch of verses for 25. But the righteous eats the satisfaction of his soul. Is a righteous man satisfied with life? He wouldn't be righteous if he still has worldly wants. In the stomach of a wicked, is a wicked ever satisfied with anything? They get what they're hunting and it didn't fix them, so they got to hunt some more. I mean, it's yes, the world will, so many people, and me included, I got to have that. I got to have this. Every time I've got it, it's never been what I really wanted. So then that just creates, you got to work harder to find something else, and it doesn't satisfy either, because the wicked's always never going to be satisfied because they haven't found the peace that comes by from God. You don't get it. The world will never satisfy. It's always gobbling itself up because it might give you pleasure for 10 minutes, but believe me, it's a wreck before it's over with. That's the way I took it. There's, like I say, there's Psalms 34 and 10. I liked it real well. A young lion lacks and suffers hunger, but those who seek the Lord shall not lack for any good thing. And when you're just worldly, you're never going to be satisfied. It's not going to happen. When you conquer something, you just got to go find something else because you can't relax and enjoy it. And then Psalms 84. And 11. For the Lord God is a sun and shield. The Lord will give grace and glory. No good thing will he withhold from those who walk uprightly. The only way we're going to find peace and what would that word be? The satisfaction is when you're not hunting your satisfaction, you're hunting the Lord's, and what he gives you, it will. I don't know how to put it, but let me assure you, I believe it 100%. Because like I say, when I was just trying to make money and blow and go, I just dig a hole deeper and deeper and deeper. Was I making money? Yes. Was it doing me a bit of good? No. It was a total disaster. Teetotal. And I wasn't making money. It was just, the more I made, the worse the wreck got. And when I finally give up and decided wasn't man enough to fix it, it fixed itself immediately. And then I don't know, but I do believe 100% that worldly wants will never satisfy nothing. But let's look at Proverbs 10 and 3. The Lord will not allow righteous souls to famish, but he cast away the desires of the wicked. He who has a slack hand becomes poor, but the hand of the diligent makes rich. The diligent in what? In work? Like I say, diligent work doesn't fix nothing. Matter of fact, you can work too hard. If you put it all about work, then you've missed the point too. But we all believe, what's the Bible say? If you don't work, you don't need to eat. But when you start putting things in front of God, your job is more important than going to church. Let me assure you, your job is just you're digging a hole you can't fill up. So, but that was the 25, and to me, but I got to get back to the ransom of a man's life is his riches, but the poor does not hear rebuke. I took it as, like I say, is if you're counting your riches, it's a ransom that you're going to pay, and it ain't going to get you nowhere. All you're going to get is exactly what the riches bring you, which is absolutely nothing. But if you are poor, but does it mean poor? It ain't poor, I'm trying to say. What if it's not about you, it's about God, then you're going to bring great riches when you give him the credit. It's the way I looked at it. Another one?
I got 6 and 13 both highlighted. They seem to go together.
6 and 13. Righteousness guards him whose way is blameless, but the wicked overthrows the sinner. And 13. He who despises the word will be destroyed. He who fears the commandment will be rewarded. Righteous guards his way. Okay. 6. We can go back to Proverbs 11, which ain't very far back here. 11. And then I had 3 verses I had to read to get this covered. The righteous upright will deliver them, but the unfaithful will be caught up in their lust. When a wicked man dies, his expectations will perish, and the hope of the unjust perishes. The righteous is delivered from trouble, and it comes to the wicked instead. So to me, that cleared up 6, but we also got Psalms 25th chapter. 25 and verse 21. The secret of the Lord is with those who fear him, and he will show them his covenant. And what's Solomon's one of his greatest sayings? Fear, the beginning. I'm going to have to look it up. I can't quote it. Wisdom, yes. Fear the Lord. And we can get deep in that. You know, does anybody here tonight fear the Lord? I hope all of us fear him if we go unjustly. We do not have to fear him if we're doing what he's asked us to do. But did you ever fear your daddy for getting a whipping? How about you, Robert? Did you ever get one? Yeah. We're going to get to there in a minute. No.
I thought you said Psalm 25:21, but it didn't match what you read.
Psalms 25:21. Don't ask me why. I get them all mixed up. But I got Psalms 25:21 wrote down. It says, though they join forces, the wicked will not go unpunished, but the prosperity of the righteous will be delivered. Though they join forces. No, I'm in Proverbs now. I'm telling you, I told y'all I mess up. At least y'all got to stay on your toes to keep up with me. And 21, and I read 14. So don't ask me why. Let integrity and uprightness preserve me, for I wait for you. Now, how did I get that into 6? 6 is, I got to get back to 6. Righteousness guards him whose way is blameless, but the wicked overthrows the sinner. And how did I get 21 in there? Let integrity and uprightness preserve me, for I wait for you. I ain't gonna sure. Y'all don't understand how much of this I told Brandon I probably wrote down 500 verses, and I tried to thin them down to 3 or 4. And I learn a lot. Well, but I also had Proverbs 3. I read them 3 through 6. Okay. And what other verse did you have that was you thought? 13. He who despises the word will be destroyed. He who fears the commandment will be rewarded. Now, what? I didn't put a verse down for that, but hoping for worldly pleasures will fade. Hope for God's promise will bring joy. And it says, I was going to look, it's in Ecclesiastes. It's where my favorite saying of Solomon's is. If I can find it. I got it marked in here big time. Y'all don't know when I get this many verses in my head. You talk about short circuit. It does. No, don't shut up. I enjoy it. Okay, in Proverbs, the 1st chapter, verse 7. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. Now that's one of my favorite things Solomon put. Because like I said, how many of us feared our parents growing up when we broke rules? How many fear the law? We got a lawman in here. How many people are scared of you because of, when I pass somebody, I can pass a cop, and I hadn't sped in a while. I pretty well, but time I pass one, I check my speed on to see how fast I was going. Every time, because I was always guilty forever.
Other people, they shaking like crazy over a speeding ticket. I actually just don't want it.
You don't want them. I never did want one. No, I got a couple, but I never did want them. But we know people was born with right and wrong in their system. I believe that, but to some degree. But when we break rules, we know we're breaking them. Some people get a thrill out of getting away with it. Some people live for it. I mean, people like to push the edge. And I always thought it was macho when I got me a speeding ticket. You know, isn't that stupid how people go? I don't want to ask you. He knows how many I got. Huh? But, yeah, I took it as a badge of honor. Now, is that perverted the way you're looking at something? Absolutely. Now I can look back and say, what was I thinking? That was so stupid. But I wanted to, I was in a hurry. I was one of them thought I had to go fast. No, it was just bucking the bridle. Everybody likes to buck the system a little bit. All of us, something we do bucks the system. Now, I was a hot rodder. See, what's Trevor do to buck the system? I don't know. But we do. All of us has something that we have more trouble with. You know, smoking. Why do we smoke? Every one of us here knows it's bad for you. I don't even know who smokes, but if they do, well, why do you smoke? Same reason I overeat, because I like to eat. But I know it's bad for me. So, I mean, but we all have something that we have to buck the system on. Now, was it smart? No. That was, if I had half the money I wasted on speed, I'd be a rich man. But let me assure you, but it's one reason that I'm still broke in one way. In one way, I quit tearing up pickups and quit having to buy stuff and tires for sure. So, but there again, when we get to living the way God wants us to live, all that gets fixed. Okay, somebody pick another verse. You hadn't picked one of mine yet, so. But we're going to get to mine, and then I will get in trouble. Uh-oh. 24. He who spares his rod hates his son, but he who loves him disciplines him promptly. So what's that mean? What do you think?
Well, it's not talking about an abusive relationship. It's talking about father who disciplines his son.
He who spares his rod hates his son.
Discipline your kids. And with a whooping every once in a while, when they need it. Might as well just hate your son.
You know,
I know that every generation historically has thought that the next generation was just ruining things and messing up. But today, when you look at the kids, the school age kids, so many of them, there's no accountability for anything. If you fail a test, so what? If you fail a grade, so what? You're still going to get promoted. If you get in trouble, so what? You go to the principal's office and get candy. And because of that, we're growing up with a generation that feels entitled to do anything they want. And if you got a problem with it, it's your problem, not theirs.
I always remember, I've used this before. I know y'all remember it, but what was that? The first school shooting, the big one in Colorado. Columbine, and they was interviewing one of them boys, and it just made an impression on me that it stuck forever. And they said, "Why did you do this?" He said, "Why not? I've never been corrected for nothing, and I didn't know you was going to have to pay a price." He killed how many? It was a bunch of people was killed, dead. But he said, "I've never been disciplined and never been corrected by my parents." Well, you know what I said? Then they ought to whip the parents, because they didn't teach him that you have to pay a price when you break a rule. Now, I got tickets and you had to pay a price, didn't we, Randy? Sometimes. I got a discount from him, though. But when we break rules with our parents, we pay a price. That's the way you teach people. When you break the law and you go to jail, you pay the price. If it does you good, great. And definitely wakes a lot of people up. But we still have to know that there's a price to be paid when the rules are broken. That's what but let's look at Proverbs 23 and 13. That's Clay's favorite. I had to call him and say, "I can't find it. I know it's in Proverbs, but I don't know. What's your favorite saying about kids?" And he quotes it to me regularly all the time. 23 and 13. "Do not withhold correction from a child, for if you beat him with a rod, he will not die. You shall beat him with a rod and deliver his soul from hell." Now that's pretty plain spoken. Now, have y'all ever been beat with a rod? I have. Post, whatever they got a hold of. But did it hurt? Oh, bad. I mean, my dad could give real ones now. I've had my Levi's cut plumb off of me with nylon ropes and left blood and all. But did it ever hurt? It grew back. There's even no scars back there now. But it's still there. The memory of it's still there. Was he doing me a favor or was he doing me harm? If you correct them out of love to try to help them be a better person. Why does God correct us? There's a couple of more verses here that'll explain that. The one I want to really read is Hebrews 12. So let's go to Hebrews 12. I'm going to read 4 or 5 verses there. But I really like this one. This was one of my ones that we've got away from it. Every generation never wants to be as tough as your daddy was on you. So I was lighter on my kids than I was. Was that good or was that bad? That's debatable. Now, and do you have to whip them to get their attention? Some kids you don't have to whip any. I had one that I could just be mad and they just make them cry for a week and break their heart. And I had another one you could beat her every day. It ain't changed nothing yet. So, but let's look at Hebrews, the 12th chapter, verse 7. 7 through 11. If you endure chastening, God deals with you as with sons. For what son is there whom a father does not chasten? But if you are without chastening, of which all have become partakers, then you are illegitimate and not sons. Furthermore, we have had human fathers who corrected us, and we paid them respect. Shall we not much more readily be in subjection to the Father of the Spirit and live? For they indeed for a few days chastened us, and as seemed best to them, but he for our profit, that we may be partakers of his holiness. Now, no chastening seemed to be joyful for the present, but painful. Nevertheless, afterwards it yields a peaceful fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it. So God, he only rebukes those that's his children. If we chose to turn away from him, he don't rebuke, he just lets you go. Now, you're going to get rebuked on Judgment Day, there's no doubt. But then I read this backwards because I wanted it to. It made sense to me. Now I'm going to read the same till 5 and 6. Verse 5 and 6 in chapter 12. And you have forgotten the exhortation which speaks to you as to sons. My son, do not despise the chastening of the Lord, nor be discouraged when you are rebuked by him. For whom the Lord loves, he chastens, and scours every son whom he receives. So we got to take it as a blessing.
So how do you recognize it?
How do you reckon?
For example, think about the Holocaust and what the Jewish people went through. Jewish Christian or old Jew, it didn't matter. All of them were being persecuted. Well, was any of that the Lord's discipline? We know that the Lord allowed it. We know that it went through his hands and he allowed it to happen. But how do you know what's discipline from God versus what's just evil or what's just happenstance?
Well, God doesn't do evil. If he's chasing us because he loves you and he's trying to save your soul where he don't have to condemn you to hell, is the way I look at it. But why does good people have trouble? We've all used to, you'll hear it every now, man, you're going to the wrong church. Just the other day, me and one of the Mennonites was visiting and having a deal. And he said to me, how bad his luck's been going. I said, you need to start coming to church with me. My luck's been pretty good lately. Maybe you're going to the wrong church. He nearly wanted to fight. I was joking, buddy. I said, I'm not questioning your faith, but you are. And he said, no, I'm not. I said, well, then what are you griping about? And I used your deal. What's that favorite saying? The one me and Clay beat you up on, and I love it. It's a James. My brethren, count it all joy when you fall into various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces patience. But let patience have its perfect work, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. So when we're having troubles, what's it doing? It's teaching us how to handle them. And how do we handle troubles? Handle it, but go to God with your problem. Turn it over to him. Let him. But what's he doing? He's teaching us that we ain't tough enough to handle this world. This world will get us every time. And why do we have to worry about it? And since we're talking elders a lot and we're getting all beat up about it, I can bring that up. Who desires the position to be an elder? It scares me to death. But who desires to please the Lord? So if you turn the Lord down, what happened to Jonah, that sermon we had? What happened to Jonah when he turned the Lord down? What happened to Moses when he went against him? What happened to anybody in the Bible that God gave a deal to and then they faltered?
It sounds like George's lesson.
Yeah.
With Pharaoh and hardening his heart.
I said everybody's ganging up on this deal and gotten us all thinking, but every man in here needs to be thinking about it. Do we want everything taken away from us and give to somebody else to get the one talent? You got one talent, and do you want it taken away from you and given to somebody else? Because that's what's going to happen. Because if you don't use what the Lord give you, what's going to happen? You're going to be held accountable for not doing it. But it's a tough call. But it's still, that very much makes us stop and think about it. And like I say, you get in a lot of trouble now whipping kids and all that. I promise the only teachers I ever learned from in school was the ones that disciplined me. And I was never a bad kid in school. I was too bashful. But the only ones you learn from is the ones you respect. If you can't respect somebody, you'll never learn one thing from them because you think they're a fool. You don't think, you have no respect for them. How can you listen to anything they say and give credit to it? So we've done an injustice by not having more corrections. But so many of us took it overboard and made it bad. Because, like I say, you ought to correct and never when you're mad. I've been corrected when somebody was mad, and I've corrected when I was mad. And nothing good comes out of that. I told my daughter, I told y'all this, but one day she called me, well, I thought you lied to me for 20 years. You told me this hurt you worse than me, and I said, if you hurt you, you wouldn't be whipping me. But she said I had to whip all three of my kids. They just all got together and told a big white lie, and it got ugly. And you're right, Dad, it hurt me worse than it did them. I laughed. I said, that's the coolest thing, because that's called payback. But because she was whipping them for the right reason, because she was trying to fix them. And mine knew one thing, and when they lied to me and I caught them, it was ugly. Because that's the one rule with my dad. If he caught you lying, it was a beating. It wasn't even a spanking. It was ugly. He said, you can do a lot of things you don't even have to say, but do not lie. It was ugly. But we've gotten away from that some, and that's one reason we're having more killings, more problems in the world. But they send kids to school and they want the teachers to teach them, but they haven't taught them anything at home. They can't learn from the teachers if they already don't know how to listen to the parents to some degree. So it's just our system is kind of failing. Okay, I'm on my rant. Y'all pick another verse. I got one more I wanted to do for sure. 13, 12, and 13. Oh, I'm at 14. I got to get back to 13. Okay. 12. No, again, tell me. 12. 12 and 13. Hope deferred makes the heart sick, but when the desire comes, it is the tree of life. Get back to my 12. Okay, I already said that. Hope deferred makes the heart sick. So what do you think it means? I told you what I thought of.
Hoping for something you don't get it, your heart is sick. But when you desire something, and your desire is fulfilled, it gives you the tree of life.
Have you ever hoped for anything that you're glad you didn't get it later? Quite often I do. Man, am I glad I didn't get that. But at the time you thought it was pretty bad. But that's the way I took it. Hoping for the worldly pleasures will fade, but hope for God's promise will bring joy is the way I wrote it. I didn't have a verse on that, but 13 I had 2 or 3 verses. He who despises the word will be destroyed, and he who fears the commandment will be rewarded. Numbers 15. We'll see if this makes sense. Y'all don't understand me and my brain. 15:31. Because he has despised the word of the Lord and has broken his commandment, that person shall be completely cut off. His guilt shall be upon him. So that covers 13. He who despises the world will be destroyed. And I also got 2 Chronicles. 2 Chronicles 36. And 16. But they mocked the messengers of God, despised his words, and scoffed at his prophets until the wrath of the Lord arose against his people, till there was no remedy. Now, he who despises the word will be destroyed. How many times did God destroy his own people? Punish them for not following his commandments. Why was we have all that knowledge in the Bible? To tell us how God's going to treat us. But now, the New Testament brought he's just going to treat us on the day of judgment. But he's going to be exactly the same way he treated his own people in the Old Testament. If we haven't followed him, we're going to break his rules. We're going to be destroyed. Okay, but then I've also got Isaiah 5. I think this is the one that goes the other side of it. Isaiah 5:24. Therefore, as the fire devours the stubble, and the flame consumes the shaft, so the root will be as rottenness, and their blossom will ascend like dust, because they have rejected the law of the Lord of hosts and despised the word of the Holy One. I didn't have one there that done the last part. But he who fears commandments will be rewarded. But that's where I read. Fear of the Lord brings wisdom. He who fears God's will be rewarded, because we changed because we don't want his judgment on us, is the way I took it. Oh, and I had 22, verse 22 I want to talk about. A good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children, but the wealth of the sinner is stored up for the righteous. Okay. Digest that, Todd. What's he saying?
It could literally be dollars and cents, but it could also be things like the inheritance of faith, the inheritance of self-discipline, and things along those lines. And I think that possibly it's a blend of both.
Blend all of it. Let's go to Proverbs 28, verse 8. One who increases his possessions by usury and extortion gathers for him who will pity the poor. Gathers too for him who will pity the poor. Nah, I'm not sure about. Well, no, wait a minute. I think I read the wrong one. Read who increase. I got that down for 22, but I also got Psalms 103. And I underlined it 2 or 3 times. So I wanted to use it for sure. 103, 15 through 17. As for a man, his days are like grass, as a flower of the field, so he flourishes. For the wind passes over, and it is gone, and in its place remembers it no more. But the mercy of the Lord is from everlasting to everlasting on those who fear him, and his righteousness to children's children. So I like that one real well. And I also had Ecclesiastes, the 2nd chapter. 2nd chapter, verse 26. For God gives wisdom and knowledge and joy to a man who is good in his sight. But to the sinner he gives the work of gathering and collecting, that he may give to him who is good before God. This also is vanity and is grasping for the wind. Which means, how did we get back to the right verse again? Gee. I can't remember what verse I was on. Oh, am I out of time? Oh, I had one more, but anyway. I hope I'm enjoying Proverbs. Y'all don't realize how Proverbs have been good for me. And he just keeps going over and over the same stuff to some degree, but that's what it takes for me to soak in. Thank y'all.